To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Quiet Life. Thomas Craig wiped down the mahogany bar counter with the same meticulous care he applied to everything in the Haven. The restaurant had been his sanctuary for 5 years now, a brick-and-mortar redemption for a past he'd buried deep. The evening rush had ended, and only a handful of regulars nursed their drinks in the amber glow of vintage Edison bulbs. "Dad, table 6 wants to compliment the chef." Hope Craig emerged from the kitchen, her ponytail swinging as she smiled. At 19, she had her mother's warm brown eyes and a work ethic that made Thomas's chest tighten with pride. She was supposed to be at college, but she'd insisted on helping out during summer break. "Tell them their chef is too humble to come out, but he appreciates it," Thomas replied, his voice carrying the gravelly undertone of someone who'd screamed orders in sandstorms and whispered in the dark. Hope rolled her eyes. "You made mushroom risotto, not state secrets." "Come on, they're sweet." Thomas relented, following his daughter to a table where an elderly couple beamed up at him. He made small talk, accepted their praise with genuine modesty, and returned to the bar feeling lighter. This was his life now. Simple, honest, clean. His wife Miriam entered through the front door, her nurse's scrubs exchanged for jeans and a light jacket. After a 12-hour shift at County General, she still managed to look graceful. She'd met Thomas 7 years ago, when he was just another veteran trying to find his footing. She didn't know everything about his past. No one did, but she knew enough. She'd seen the scars crisscrossing his torso, the way he sometimes woke in the night with his hand reaching for weapons that weren't there. "How was work?" Thomas asked, pulling her into a brief embrace. 3 car accidents and a heart attack. Tuesdays trying to become Monday. She kissed his cheek. "But I'm here now. Hope helping out. Like she owns the place." "She might someday," Miriam said softly, glancing at their daughter who was laughing with the kitchen staff. "She loves it here." Thomas felt that familiar pang of guilt and fear. He'd built the Haven on Oak Street, a transitional neighborhood where old factories were becoming lofts and young families were buying up row houses. It was supposed to be safe, a fresh start, but he knew better than most that safety was an illusion, and the past had a way of finding you. Stuart Klein, his sous chef and the closest thing Thomas had to a friend, emerged from the kitchen. "Boss, we're out of the good bourbon. Want me to run to the supplier tomorrow?" "I'll handle it," Thomas replied. "You've got that catering order." Stuart nodded and disappeared back into the kitchen. The man was a recovering addict who'd worked his way from dishwasher to Stuart's second-in-command. Thomas believed in second chances. He needed one himself. As the last customers filed out, Thomas began his closing routine. He counted the register, checked the locks on the storage room, and made notes for tomorrow's prep. The Haven was modest but successful, a neighborhood gem known for elevated comfort food and a welcoming atmosphere. Reviews praised the mysterious owner who cooks like he's apologizing for something. They weren't wrong. "Dad, can I take the car tomorrow? Jessica wants to check out that new bookstore downtown." Hope had appeared at his elbow, keys in hand. "Take mine. Mom needs hers for work." Thomas tossed her his key fob. "And Hope, be home by 10. I'm 19, not 9, and you're still my daughter." His tone was light, but she heard the steel beneath it. She kissed his cheek and headed upstairs to their apartment above the restaurant. Miriam slipped her hand into his. "You worry too much." "I worry exactly the right amount," Thomas replied, locking the front door and checking it twice. They climbed the narrow stairs to their home. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled like Miriam's lavender candles, and windows that overlooked Oak Street. Thomas stood at the window for a moment, watching a homeless man push a shopping cart past a streetlight. 2 teenagers on skateboards, a taxi idling at the corner. Normal, peaceful, fragile. He'd killed his first man at 23 in a warehouse outside Caracas. The target had been a cartel enforcer who'd butchered a DEA informant's family. Thomas remembered the weight of the silenced pistol, the way the man's eyes had widened in recognition of death. He'd felt nothing. That was the problem, or maybe the talent. By the time he'd left the unit at 38, he'd accumulated 43 confirmed kills across 40 countries, each one supposedly making the world safer. He'd left because he'd started dreaming about them. Not nightmares exactly, just their faces in quiet moments. The pizza delivery guy in Istanbul who'd been funneling money to terror cells. The accountant in Prague who designed weapons procurement networks. The nurse in Kinshasa who'd poisoned political prisoners. They'd all deserved it, his superiors had assured him. But deserving death and dying were different things. "Come to bed," Miriam called from the bedroom. Thomas turned from the window, forcing his shoulders to relax. That life was over. He'd become Thomas Craig, the restaurateur, the quiet man who made exceptional food and loved his family. The man who'd been Operator 17, who'd had 7 different passports and a body count that would sicken most people, was dead. Or so he'd thought. Chapter 2, Shadows Creeping. The first sign came on a Thursday morning. Thomas arrived at the Haven at 6 a.m. to receive produce deliveries and found his delivery driver, Oscar Meyer, pacing nervously by his truck. "Problem?" Thomas asked, unlocking the back entrance. Oscar glanced around. His pudgy face sheened with sweat despite the cool morning air. "Look, Mr. Craig, I like you. You're a good customer, always pay on time. But I gotta be honest, some guys came by the depot yesterday asking about my route. Specifically asking about this place." Thomas stilled. "What kind of guys?" "The kind with neck tattoos and bad attitudes. They want to know when I deliver, if you're ever alone, what kind of security you got." Oscar shifted his weight. "I didn't tell them nothing, but other drivers, they might not be so loyal. Just thought you should know." Thomas helped unload in silence, tipped Oscar extra, and watched him drive away with visible relief. Inside the kitchen, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. "Yeah." The voice was rough, suspicious. "It's Thomas. I need information." There was a long pause. "Jesus Christ, I thought you were dead. Or smart enough to stay dead. New life, new problems. Someone sniffing around my restaurant. Professional crew, sounds organized. What's active in the Philadelphia area?" "You're in Philly?" "Shit, man. The sound of typing. You got the sergeant crew operating in that sector. Ramiro's sergeant's outfit. They've been expanding, running protection rackets, trying to muscle into the reconstruction boom. They're not subtle." "How bad?" 4 murders in 6 months. All business owners who refuse to pay. The police can't touch them. Ramiro's got connections, lawyers, the whole setup. He's smart, which makes him dangerous. Learned the game from his uncle who ran half the city in the 90s. Thomas felt his jaw tighten. "Appreciate it." "Thomas? Stay dead. Whatever he wants, give it to him. You got a good thing going." He hung up without answering. The advice was sound, logical, the kind of thing a smart man would take. But Thomas knew these predators. Give them an inch, they'd take everything. Show weakness, they'd bleed you dry. The day proceeded normally until mid-afternoon when a black Escalade parked in the loading zone outside. 3 men emerged, all wearing expensive leather jackets despite the summer heat. The one in front had slick back hair and a gold chain thick enough to be a weapon. He pushed through the front door while his companions flanked the entrance. Thomas was behind the bar, prepping garnishes. He set down his knife carefully and wiped his hands. "We're closed until 5, he said evenly. The man smiled, revealing gold teeth. "Mario Collier. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Sargent. You might have heard of him." "Can't say I have." Mario's smile didn't waver. "Mr. Sargent oversees business interests in this neighborhood. Ensures things run smoothly. Protection from theft, vandalism, unfortunate accidents. Very reasonable rates. I've got insurance. Insurance doesn't cover everything." Mario ran his finger along the bar, examining it like a health inspector. "Beautiful place you got here. Wood floors, nice fixtures. Will be a shame if something happened. Grease fires in restaurants, they're tragic. Hard to stop once they start." Thomas felt the old coldness settling over him, the emotional distance that had made him effective. His voice remained calm. "I'm not interested. You don't understand. This isn't optional." Mario leaned forward. $5,000 a month. That's nothing for a place like this. Think of it as community investment." "The answer is no." Mario's pleasant expression evaporated. "You're making a mistake. Mr. Sargent doesn't like being disrespected. Then Mr. Sargent can come tell me himself." The threat hung in the air between them. Mario straightened, buttoning his jacket. "He'll be in touch soon. Think carefully about your next conversation." They left, the Escalade pulling away with a deliberate slowness that felt like a threat in itself. Stewart emerged from the kitchen, where he'd been watching through the order window. "Boss, who were those guys?" "Nobody important," Thomas lied. "Get the rosemary bread started." That night, Thomas lay awake while Miriam slept beside him. He could handle threats to himself. He'd lived with a target on his back for 15 years. But Hope was upstairs. Miriam would be walking to her car at the hospital. They'd made themselves vulnerable by being close to him. His phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Unknown number. The text message contained a single photo. Hope leaving the bookstore with her friend, taken from across the street. The caption read, "Pretty girl. Would hate to see her hurt." Thomas's hand tightened around the phone hard enough to make the screen protest. He deleted the message, then sat in the darkness, forcing himself to think strategically. Getting angry was a luxury. He needed to be smart. By dawn, he'd made his decision. He wouldn't run, wouldn't pay, wouldn't let these parasites take what he'd built. But he needed to know what he was dealing with. The next morning, he made 3 calls to old contacts, pulled in favors he'd been saving for emergencies. By noon, he had a file on Ramiro Sargent, 34 years old, rose through his uncle's organization before taking over, ran protection rackets, controlled drug distribution in 3 neighborhoods, had his fingers in construction contracts through intimidation. The police suspected him in multiple murders, but could never make charges stick. He operated from a nightclub called Apex, surrounded himself with muscle, and had a reputation for viciousness. Thomas studied the surveillance photos. Ramiro was handsome in a calculated way, expensive suits and designer watches. But his eyes were flat, predatory. The eyes of someone who'd hurt people and enjoyed it. "Dad, you okay?" Hope's voice startled him. He quickly closed the laptop. "Fine, sweetheart. Just checking suppliers." She gave him a skeptical look, but didn't push. "Mom wants to know if you're coming up for lunch." "Be right there." As she left, Thomas reopened the file. There was a pattern to Ramiro's operations. He'd target a business, send his men to make offers, and when owners refused, accidents happened. But always with deniability. A fire blamed on faulty wiring. A robbery gone wrong. A hit and run that police couldn't solve. Thomas knew he was being studied the same way. Ramiro would be learning his routines, his vulnerabilities, his pressure points. The photo of Hope had been a message. "We can reach your family." What Ramiro didn't know was that Thomas had spent 15 years being studied by people far more dangerous than a Philadelphia crime boss. And he'd killed every single one who'd gotten close enough to try. Chapter 3, The Ultimatum. Friday evening, the Haven was packed. The weekend crowd filled every table, and the kitchen operated at full capacity. Thomas had hired 2 extra servers for the rush, and Hope was handling the front of house with practiced efficiency. For a few hours, he could almost pretend everything was normal. Then the black Escalade returned. This time, 4 men emerged. Mario Collier, along with 2 enforcers built like industrial freezers, flanked Ramiro Sargent himself. Thomas recognized him immediately from the surveillance photos. Though in person, Ramiro carried himself with an arrogance that pictures couldn't capture. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the Haven made in a week, and a watch that caught the streetlight like a signal flare. They walked in like they owned the place. Conversations died in a wave, spreading from the entrance. Miriam, who'd stopped by after her shift, put down her wine glass, her face pale. Ramiro surveyed the restaurant with an appraising eye, then walked directly to the bar where Thomas stood. His men spread out, Mario positioning himself near the door, the 2 enforcers creating a wall of muscle. "Thomas Craig," Ramiro said, his voice smooth, educated. "We need to talk. Privately. My restaurant. We talk here or not at all." Ramiro's smile was predatory. "I admire confidence, but you're testing my patience." He gestured around the room. "These people, your customers, they're enjoying their meals. Would be ashamed to ruin their evening." Thomas glanced at Hope, who was frozen near table 6. At Miriam, who'd stood up, her nursing training making her scan for exits and injuries. At Stuart in the kitchen, visible through the order window. At the families and couples and regulars who'd made the Haven their spot. "Everyone out," Thomas said quietly. "Dad," Hope started. "Now, Hope, take your mother. Go upstairs and lock the door." Ramiro held up a hand. "No need for that. Let them finish their meals. I'm not a monster." He turned to the room, spreading his arms theatrically. "Enjoy your food, folks. Mr. Craig and I are just having a business discussion. Tonight, dinner's on me." He pulled out a massive roll of cash and tossed it on the bar. The customers looked uncertainly between Thomas and Ramiro. A few started to leave, but others, emboldened by Ramiro's performance, stayed seated. Thomas caught Miriam's eye and nodded toward the stairs. She gathered hope, and they retreated, though he could see his daughter's frightened face looking back. When the initial tension passed, and people returned to their meals under the watchful eyes of Ramiro's men, he leaned against the bar casually. "You have a nice setup here," Ramiro said, picking up a menu. "Elevated comfort food. Good reviews. You're clearing what, maybe $80,000 a year after expenses? Not bad for an honest living." He set down the menu. "But you could do better. With proper management, proper connections, this place could be a gold mine." "I like it how it is. That's short-sighted. See, this neighborhood is changing. Property values rising, new development coming. You're sitting on a prime location, but you need protection, the kind I provide. I'm not paying protection money." Ramiro's expression hardened. "You think you have a choice? Let me explain how this works. You have 3 options. 1, you pay me $5,000 a month and we all prosper. 2, you sell me this place for, say, $1 and I let you walk away. 3, you let it hang in the air. 3 is messy, and your daughter is very pretty." Thomas felt the familiar coldness flood his system, the one that had allowed him to work in the darkest corners of the world. His voice remained eerily calm. "Threaten my family again, and you won't leave this building." Ramiro laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. "You've got balls, I'll give you that. But do you have any idea who you're talking to? I own this neighborhood. I've buried 6 people who thought they were tough. What are you, an ex-cop? Ex-military? Let me guess, you think you're hard because you did a tour in Iraq." Thomas said nothing, just watched Ramiro with the same intensity he'd used to observe targets through a scope. "Here's what's going to happen," Ramiro continued, leaning forward. His cologne was expensive, trying to mask the smell of violence and arrogance. "You're going to think about my generous offer this weekend. Monday, you'll call this number," he slid a business card across the bar, "and tell me you accept option 1 or 2. If I don't hear from you by Monday night, I'll choose option 3 for you. Sell me this restaurant for $1 or I burn it down tonight." Thomas said quietly, almost to himself, recognizing the classic extortion play. He'd seen warlords use the same tactic in Somalia. "Smart man. You're catching on." Ramiro straightened his jacket. "Your daughter's pretty. Shame if something happened." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow, but he kept his expression neutral. Around the room, his customers ate uneasily, pretending not to hear. Mario and the enforcers watched with the bored expressions of men who'd seen this play out 100 times. Thomas moved with deliberate slowness, reaching under the bar. Every set of eyes tracked his hand. He produced a ring of keys and walked to the front door, the floorboards creaking under his feet. He reached up and calmly flipped the open sign to closed. "What are you doing?" Ramiro asked, amusement in his voice. Thomas locked the door with a decisive click that echoed in the suddenly silent restaurant. He pocketed the keys and turned to face Ramiro, his posture shifting in a way that made the temperature seem to drop 10 degrees. "I spent 15 years in Black Ops as their assassin," Thomas said, his voice flat, matter of fact. "I've got at least 1 kill in 40 countries. Iran, Russia, Venezuela, Pakistan, Yemen. You want me to keep going?" Ramiro's smile faltered. "You expect me to believe. I don't care what you believe." Thomas walked back toward the bar, and even Mario shifted uncomfortably. "Here's what you don't understand about men like me. We don't bluff. We don't negotiate. When we decide someone needs to die, they die. Quietly. Professionally. and no one ever finds out who did it. Ramiro reached for his waistband, where a gun bulge was visible. But he froze when he saw what Thomas was holding. In Thomas's hand was a combat knife with a 7-inch blade, matte black, the kind issued to special operations units. He'd retrieved it from under the bar in the same motion he'd grabbed the keys. The blade caught no light. It was designed to be invisible in darkness. "You made your last mistake when you threatened my daughter," Thomas said. The customers were scrambling for the back exit now, and Stewart was ushering them out through the kitchen. Good. Less witnesses. Mario pulled his gun, as did both enforcers. 3 pistols trained on Thomas, who stood in the center of his restaurant like a man who'd already calculated every outcome. "You pull that trigger, and you'll have 3 murders in a crowded neighborhood," Thomas said calmly. "Gunshots will bring police. Your boss standing over bodies with his print on glass. Is that really how you want this to go?" "Put the knife down," Ramiro ordered, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. "You're outnumbered and outgunned. This is suicide." "No," Thomas said softly. "This is home, and I've killed more men than you've threatened in rooms with much worse odds." He took a step forward. "You want this restaurant? You'll have to take it from my dead hands, and you'll lose at least 2 men in the process. Maybe all 3. Maybe you." The standoff stretched. Thomas could hear his heart beating steadily, the old training taking over. He was calculating angles, distances, the time it would take to close with Mario while using the bar for cover. He'd probably take 2 rounds, but he'd kill at least one of them, maybe 2 before. "This isn't over," Ramiro snarled, backing toward the door. "You just signed your family's death warrant." "No," Thomas replied. "I just showed you what happens when you threaten them. This is your one warning. Come after me, come after my business, and I'll handle it. But touch my wife or daughter, and I'll hunt down everyone you've ever loved and make you watch them die before I kill you." The coldness in his voice made even the enforcers shift nervously. These were men who'd committed violence, but Thomas spoke with the absolute certainty of someone who made killing an art form. "Unlock the door," Mario demanded, gun still trained on Thomas. Thomas tossed the keys. They hit the floor at Mario's feet, forcing him to bend down, breaking his sight line for a second. It was a test. If Thomas had wanted, that second would have been enough. They fled out the door, Ramiro maintaining his dignity until he was safely outside. Through the window, Thomas watched the Escalade peel away, leaving rubber on the asphalt. The restaurant was empty now except for Stewart, who emerged from the kitchen, pale and shaking. "Boss, what the hell was that?" "That," Thomas said, setting the knife down carefully, "was me making a very large mistake." Because he knew how this would end. Ramiro wasn't going to back down after being humiliated in front of men. He'd retaliate, hard and fast, and Thomas had just painted target on everyone he loved. Upstairs, he found Miriam and Hope holding each other on the couch, both crying. When they saw him, Hope ran into his arms. "Dad, what's happening? Who were those men?" Thomas held his daughter tight, feeling the weight of every life he'd taken, every choice he'd made that had led to this moment. "I need to tell you both something about who I used to be, and for the first time in 5 years." Thomas Craig spoke about Operator 17. Chapter 4, The Ghost Returns. Thomas talked until dawn. He told them about the recruitment at 22, fresh out of Marine Force recon, when men in suits had offered him a chance to serve his country in ways that would never be acknowledged. He told them about the training that had stripped away hesitation and rebuilt him into something efficient and deadly. He told them about assignments in cities they'd never heard of, eliminating people whose names were classified above top secret. He didn't tell them everything. Some things, the interrogations, the wet work in civilian spaces, the times he'd posed as a friend before pulling the trigger. Those he kept buried. But he told them enough. Miriam listened with her arms wrapped around herself, processing the revelation that the man she'd married had killed 43 people. Hope cried quietly, then stopped crying, then asked questions in a small voice. "Did they deserve it?" she finally asked. "The people you killed? The government said they did," Thomas replied honestly. "Whether that's the same thing, I don't know anymore. That's why I left. Can we go to the police?" Miriam asked, practical even in crisis. "And tell them what? That a gang leader made threats?" "They'd investigate," maybe question him, and he'd retaliate harder. Ramiro's got lawyers, connections. He's been doing this for years. Thomas rubbed his eyes. No, the police can't help us here. So what do we do? Hope's voice was steadier now, and Thomas saw his own stubbornness reflected in her expression. You two leave. Tomorrow. I have a friend with a cabin in Vermont, completely off-grid. You go there and stay until this is over. Absolutely not, Miriam said immediately. We're not leaving you to face this alone. I can handle Ramiro and his men, but only if I don't have to worry about protecting you both. They argued for another hour, but Thomas was immovable. Finally, exhausted and emotional, Miriam agreed on one condition. If he wasn't in contact within a week, she'd go to the FBI, tell them everything, and let the chips fall where they may. At 7 a.m., Thomas drove them to a rental car office 3 neighborhoods over. He paid cash for a month-long rental, using an old identity he'd maintained. He hugged Hope fiercely, kissed Miriam like it might be the last time. Come back to us, Miriam whispered. Always, he promised, and meant it. He watched them drive away, then made a stop at a storage unit across town. He'd rented it 5 years ago under another name, paid years in advance. Inside were weapons, documents, cash, and equipment he'd sworn he'd never need again. Thomas spent 2 hours cataloging what he had. 3 pistols, a disassembled rifle, enough ammunition for a small war, communications gear, body armor, and most importantly, his old operational laptop with encrypted access to databases he technically shouldn't still have access to. Back at the Haven, he found Stewart and 3 other staff members waiting nervously. Boss, we heard what happened, Stewart said. We're with you. Thomas felt a surge of gratitude and alarm. Stewart, you can't be involved in this. None of you can. These are dangerous people. This is our restaurant too, Stewart replied. And we're not letting some gangster run us out. It was a kind gesture, but Thomas knew civilians would only get hurt. I appreciate it, but I need you to take a week off. Paid. All of you. I'm closing the Haven temporarily. They protested, but Thomas was firm. By noon, he'd sent everyone home and stood alone in his empty restaurant. He'd built this place as a testament to a new life, and now he was going to defend it using skills from the old one. His phone rang. Unknown number. You've got spirit, I'll give you that. Ramiro's voice was controlled, but Thomas could hear the anger underneath. But spirit doesn't stop bullets. My men are asking why we're letting some cook disrespect us. I'm struggling to give them a good answer. Walk away, Thomas said. Find another restaurant to extort. This doesn't have to end badly. It already ended badly the moment you locked that door. A pause. I looked into you, Thomas Craig. Or should I say Thomas Graves? Or Thomas Blackwood? Or any of the 6 other names you've used. You're a ghost, man. Whoever you were, you buried him deep. Thomas's jaw tightened. Ramiro had resources, connections that could dig into backgrounds. But here's the thing about ghosts, Ramiro continued. They're already dead. They just don't know it yet. Tonight, your restaurant burns. I'm done being subtle. The line went dead. Thomas had expected this. Violence was inevitable once pride entered the equation, and he'd humiliated Ramiro in front of his crew. But knowing it was coming and preparing for it were different things. He spent the afternoon fortifying the Haven. He designed the building's security when he bought it, with paranoia most people would find excessive. Now, that paranoia paid off. He activated cameras he'd hidden in the exterior walls, set up motion sensors in the alley, and prepared the kind of surprises that would make Ramiro's men reconsider their career choices. At 11 p.m., they came. 2 cars this time, 8 men total. Thomas watched them on his laptop screen as they parked a block away and approached on foot. They carried tire irons, gasoline cans, and at least 3 visible firearms. Mario led the group, pointing and giving orders. Thomas waited until they reached the back door, until Mario was jimmying the lock, until they were committed. Then he activated the first surprise. The industrial halogen lights he'd mounted on the roof blazed to life, turning the alley into daytime. The men froze, blinded and exposed. In that moment of confusion, Thomas emerged from a side door they hadn't noticed. He moved like he'd never stopped being Operator 17. The first man went down from a strike to the knee, followed by an elbow to the temple. The second turned, reaching for his gun, but Thomas was already inside his guard, redirecting the weapon and delivering a palm strike to the nose that shattered cartilage. Mario fired wild, the shot going high. Thomas rolled behind a dumpster as return fire peppered the metal. He came up with his pistol. He'd hoped to avoid lethal force, but they'd made that choice impossible and put 2 rounds into the wall above Mario's head. "Next one drops you," Thomas called out. "Leave now and live." For a moment, it seemed like they might retreat. Then one of the men, probably too scared to think clearly, threw a gasoline can toward the door. It shattered, fuel spreading across the concrete. Mario pulled a lighter. "You want to die in there?" "Fine." Thomas shot him in the shoulder. The lighter spun away as Mario screamed and fell. The other men grabbed him and dragged him to the cars, leaving their injured behind. Within seconds, the alley was empty except for the 2 men Thomas had disabled. He checked them, both unconscious but breathing, and zip-tied their hands before calling 911 from Vertifone. 2 injured men in the alley behind the Haven on Oak Street. They need medical attention. He hung up before they could ask questions. The police would come. They'd investigate. But Mario and his crew weren't going to admit what they'd been doing. And Thomas had made sure his security footage showed only men attacking his restaurant. Still, he knew this was just round 1. Ramiro had retreated, but men like him didn't forgive failures. He'd lost face twice now, and that meant he'd come back with everything he had. Thomas returned to his apartment and opened his laptop. Thomas stopped playing defense. If Ramiro wanted a war, Thomas would give him one, just not the kind he was expecting. Chapter 5: Dismantling the Kingdom. Thomas spent Saturday compiling intelligence. His access to classified databases had technically expired, but he'd maintained backdoor access through a colleague who owed him multiple favors. By noon, he had a complete picture of Ramiro Sargent's operation. The crime boss had his fingers in a dozen enterprises, 3 nightclubs including Apex, a construction company used for money laundering, protection rackets covering 40 businesses, and a drug distribution network that stretched across the city. His weakness was his pride. He needed to be seen as untouchable, which meant he surrounded himself with visible displays of wealth and power. Thomas knew that pride could be exploited. His first target was Ramiro's money. The construction company, Sargent Development, had contracts with the city worth millions. Those contracts existed because Ramiro had dirt on 2 city councilmen, photographs of them with underage girls at a party 3 years ago. The files were kept in a safe at Apex. Sunday night, Thomas broke into the nightclub. The security was good by civilian standards: cameras, guards, reinforced doors, but laughable compared to what he'd breached in Tehran. He disabled the cameras with a signal jammer, picked the back entrance lock in under a minute, and slipped past the guards by using ductwork that led directly to Ramiro's second-floor office. The safe was a Gardall G8000 digital lock with biometric backup. Thomas bypassed, both using a technique he'd learned from a dead Mossad agent in Cairo. Inside, he found exactly what he needed: the photographs, account ledgers showing bribes and payoffs, and most damaging, a ledger detailing protection payments with names and amounts. He didn't steal anything. Instead, he photographed everything with a high-resolution camera, then replaced it all exactly as he'd found it. Let Ramiro think his secrets were still safe. Monday morning, anonymous emails hit the local news stations, the FBI's Philadelphia field office, and the city's ethics committee. The photographs, the financial records, the proof of systematic corruption, all of it dumped into the public sphere with subject lines like "Sargent Crime, Empire Exposed." By noon, the news was breaking. By evening, the FBI had raided Sargent Development and frozen its accounts. The 2 councilmen resigned in disgrace. And Ramiro's construction empire, the legitimate face that let him operate with impunity, collapsed in a single day. Thomas watched the news from a motel room across town, a small smile on his face. That was 40% of Ramiro's revenue gone. But he wasn't done. Tuesday, Thomas hit the drug network. Ramiro distributed through 4 key distributors who operated in different neighborhoods. Thomas had learned their identities from the ledgers. More importantly, he learned they were afraid of Ramiro, but not loyal. They paid tribute because refusing meant death. Thomas approached the first distributor, Frankie Pugh, at a diner where he counted money every Tuesday afternoon. He slid into the booth across from him, watching Frankie's hand move toward his waistband. "I'm not here to hurt you," Thomas said quietly. "I'm here to give you an opportunity." "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who's taking down Ramiro's sergeant. I know you pay him 60% of your profit. I know he's threatened your family. I know you'd love to be free of him." Frankie's eyes narrowed. "You're that restaurant guy. Word is your dead meat. Word is wrong. Here's my offer. You keep operating, but you stop paying Ramiro. I'll provide protection." "You? Against Ramiro's whole crew? You're crazy." Thomas slid a photograph across the table. It showed Frankie's apartment from an angle that could only have been taken from inside, focused on his sleeping daughter. Frankie went pale. "I took that photo this morning," Thomas said. "I could have hurt your family, but I didn't. That's the difference between Ramiro and me. He rules by fear. I'm offering you a choice. Keep paying a parasite who treats you like a slave, or stand up and take what's yours." Over the next 2 days, Thomas made the same pitch to all 4 distributors. 3 accepted, 1 refused, and Thomas let him be. He needed Ramiro to maintain some operations, otherwise he'd go underground. By Thursday, Ramiro's drug revenue had dropped 70%. His dealers had quietly rebelled, protected by a ghost who seemed to know everything and be everywhere. The crime boss was hemorrhaging money and respect. Thursday night, Thomas was watching Apex from across the street when his phone rang. Miriam's number. "Is it over?" she asked without preamble. "Not yet. How are you and Hope?" "Worried. The news is calling it a gang war. They're showing pictures of Ramiro's sergeant and saying the FBI is investigating organized crime." "It's working," Thomas said. "A few more days." "Thomas, be careful. Even cornered animals are dangerous." "I know. That's when they're most predictable." He hung up and refocused on Apex. Inside, he could see through the windows that Ramiro was holding court, surrounded by his remaining men. The crime boss looked haggard, his usual polish cracked. Good. Fear made people make mistakes. Friday, Thomas executed his masterstroke. He'd been saving this, waiting for the right moment. From his intelligence gathering, he'd learned that Ramiro had a partner, his cousin, Daniel Sargent, who managed the protection rackets while Ramiro handled the drugs and construction fronts. Daniel was smarter than Ramiro, more cautious, and crucially, ambitious. Thomas arranged a meeting at an abandoned warehouse on the riverfront. Daniel came with 2 bodyguards, suspicious but intrigued by the mysterious message promising a solution to your Ramiro problem. "You," Daniel said when he saw Thomas. "You're causing all this chaos." "I'm exposing what was always there," Thomas replied. "Ramiro's incompetent leadership, his pride over strategy, his inability to adapt. He's bleeding money and bringing federal attention. How long before he drags you down with him?" "What do you want?" "I want Ramiro to pay for threatening my family. You want to survive and prosper. Our interests align." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking me to betray family. I'm offering you a chance to save your operation. In a week, maybe less, the FBI is going to bring RICO charges. They got the evidence from the raid, but they don't have everything. They don't have the protection racket files, or the names of dirty cops, or the offshore accounts. Those are still in Ramiro's possession, and he'll burn everyone to save himself." It was a bluff. Thomas didn't know if the FBI had enough for RICO charges. But Daniel didn't know that either, and fear was a powerful motivator. "What are you proposing?" "Ramiro comes after me tonight. You make sure his best men aren't available. You make sure he's exposed and vulnerable. And when this is over, you take over what's left of the operation, but you stay away from my restaurant and my family. You rebuild quietly, smartly, without Ramiro's cowboy theatrics. And if I refuse," Thomas's expression hardened, "then I make sure the FBI knows where all the bodies are buried. Literally, I got files on every murder Ramiro's committed, and I know you were involved in at least 3 of them." The threat hung in the air. Daniel was weighing his options: loyalty to a sinking ship or survival with a devil's bargain. "Tonight," Daniel finally asked. "Tonight," Thomas confirmed. "Ramiro thinks I'm hiding. He's wrong. I'm waiting." Chapter 6, The Trap Springs. Ramiro's sergeant sat in his office at Apex, surrounded by maps and photographs of the haven tacked to the wall like a serial killer's shrine. His shoulder still ached from where that cook had shot him, the bandage bulky under his silk shirt. Everything was falling apart. The FBI raid had frozen millions. His dealers had betrayed him. The news was calling him a mob boss, destroying any pretense of legitimacy. And his crew, once loyal through fear and money, was starting to whisper. Whispers about weakness, about how one man, some nobody restaurant owner, had brought down an empire. "Where's Daniel?" he asked Mario, who stood nearby nursing his own wounds. Said he had to handle something with the protection crews. "Some of the businesses are getting nervous." Ramiro nodded, not really listening. His focus was laser-focused on one objective, killing Thomas Craig. The man had humiliated him, cost him everything, and needed to die in a way that would restore Ramiro's reputation. Public, brutal, a message. "Tonight," Ramiro said, "we end this. I want every man we have left. We burn that restaurant to the ground with him inside." Mario shifted uncomfortably. "Boss, maybe we should lay low. The FBI is watching." "I don't care." Ramiro's voice cracked like a whip. "This ends tonight. Craig thinks he's clever, thinks he can hide behind his spooky soldier past. But he's one man. We're going to show him what happens when you disrespect me." What Ramiro didn't know was that Daniel had already made his choice. Half the crew's best enforcers have been sent on wild goose chases. False reports of dealer rebellions in other neighborhoods, problems that didn't exist. The men who remained were Ramiro's most loyal, but also his most reckless. The ones who followed orders without thinking. At 10 p.m., Ramiro led a convoy of 3 vehicles toward Oak Street. 8 men, heavily armed, determined to overwhelm with firepower what they lacked in strategy. They parked 2 blocks from the haven and approached on foot, weapons drawn. The restaurant was dark, seemingly abandoned. Ramiro felt a spike of satisfaction. Craig had run, like they all eventually did. "Spread out," he ordered. "Mario, take the back. I want this building burning in 5 minutes." They moved into position, and that's when Thomas's trap closed. The first indication was the spotlight, industrial halogen again, but this time from multiple angles, turning the street into a stage. The men froze, exposed. Then Thomas's voice, amplified through speakers he'd hidden in the buildings. "Ramiro's sergeant, you come to burn down my restaurant, but I'm not inside." Ramiro spun, trying to locate the source of the voice. His men raised weapons, but at what? The voice seemed to come from everywhere. "I'm broadcasting this live," Thomas continued. "Every news station in Philadelphia is getting this feed. The FBI is watching. The police are en route. And you're standing in the middle of the street with illegal weapons, about to commit arson. Smile for the cameras." Indeed, Thomas had positioned cameras at 3 angles, capturing everything in HD. And he was live streaming to multiple outlets, including the FBI tip line and a local news station that loved breaking stories. Ramiro's face contorted with rage. "I'll kill you. I'll kill your family. His threats were captured in crystal clarity as police sirens began wailing in the distance. Thomas had timed it perfectly, giving them just enough illegal activity to witness before the cops arrived. "Run," one of Ramiro's men urged. But Ramiro had lost his grip on reality. He raised his pistol and fired into the haven's windows, shattering glass in a spray of violence that was captured from 3 angles. It was the worst thing he could do: destruction of property, illegal weapons discharge, all recorded and being broadcast live. "Boss, we gotta go." Mario grabbed Ramiro's arm. The police arrived in force, 6 cars, lights blazing. Thomas had tipped them off 20 minutes ago about an imminent attack, giving them time to position themselves. Ramiro's men scattered, but they were surrounded. Within minutes, all 8 were in handcuffs. Thomas watched from a rooftop across the street, using a military-grade scope. He'd orchestrated everything: the lighting, the cameras, the timing. Ramiro had walked into a perfect trap, his anger making him predictable. As the police led Ramiro away, the crime boss looked up, his eyes searching the darkness. "Craig," he screamed, "this isn't over. I'll get out, and I'll find you." But Thomas knew better. The live stream had been seen by thousands. The evidence was overwhelming. And most importantly, Daniel Sargent was already talking to prosecutors, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. Thomas descended from the rooftop and walked away into the night, a ghost once more. Chapter 7. Unfinished Business. The arrest of Ramiro Sargent led every news broadcast Saturday morning. The footage of him threatening to kill Thomas's family while brandishing an illegal weapon had gone viral. The FBI announced RICO charges based on the evidence dumped from earlier in the week. Daniel Sargent was cooperating, providing testimony about years of criminal enterprise. But Thomas knew it wasn't over. Not really. He met with Daniel Sunday afternoon at a different warehouse. This one cleaner, more industrial. The new boss of what remained of the Sargent operation arrived alone. A show of trust that was really just pragmatism. If Thomas wanted him dead, bodyguards wouldn't help. Ramiro's looking at 20 years minimum, Daniel said. The prosecutors love him. High-profile mob case, clean evidence, witnesses willing to testify. He's done, and you take over, Thomas observed. What's left of it? Half the businesses have already left, scared by the publicity. The dealers are independent now. I'm rebuilding from scratch. Daniel studied Thomas. You cost me a fortune. You're alive and free. That's worth more. Daniel conceded the point with a slight nod. We had an agreement. I stay away from your restaurant, your family. I keep my word. See that you do. Thomas's voice carried the implicit threat. I've dismantled one empire. I can do it again. They parted ways, each returning to their separate worlds. But as Thomas drove back to the Haven, he felt a creeping unease. Something felt unfinished, like a bullet that hadn't quite left the chamber. His instinct was proven right Monday morning. Thomas was cleaning up the broken glass from Ramiro's shooting spree when a black sedan pulled up. Not an Escalade this time, but something more subtle. Two men in suits emerged, carrying badges. Thomas Craig? FBI Special Agents Byron Ray and Harold Turner. We need to talk. Thomas set down his broom carefully. This was the complication he'd been expecting. The FBI didn't just want Ramiro. They wanted to know who'd orchestrated his downfall. Of course. Come inside. They sat at the bar while Thomas made coffee. Agent Ray was older, weathered, with the eyes of someone who'd seen too much. Agent Turner was younger, ambitious, taking notes on everything. Hell of a week you've had, Ray said. Gang tries to burn down your restaurant. Crime boss arrested on your doorstep. And somehow you're the victim in all this. I am the victim, Thomas replied evenly. Sure, victim who managed to hack into Ramiro Sargent's financial records, expose city corruption, turn his dealers against him, and set up an elaborate trap that resulted in his arrest. That's some impressive victimhood. Thomas sipped his coffee. I'm not sure what you're implying. We're not implying anything, Turner cut in. We're stating facts. The question is how Thomas Craig, restaurant owner with no apparent technical skills or criminal connections, managed to dismantle a crime organization in 1 week. Maybe Ramiro wasn't as smart as he thought. Ray leaned forward. We ran your background, Mr. Craig. Or tried to. Funny thing, it's very thin. You show up 5 years ago, buy this restaurant with cash, and before that, almost nothing. Thomas Craig exists on paper, but in reality, he's a ghost. Thomas felt his pulse quicken, but kept his expression neutral. I was in the military. Private contractor work after that. I valued my privacy. What unit? That's classified. Not from us it isn't, Turner said. We have clearance. Give us your commanding officer's name, your unit designation, something we can verify. This was the edge Thomas had been balancing on. If they dug deep enough, they'd find Operator 17. They'd find the black operations, the kills, the network of identities. And while that was all technically legal under national security directives, it would open doors he'd worked hard to close. Lawyer, Thomas said simply. Ray smiled without humor. Interesting choice. Most innocent people don't immediately invoke legal protection. Most innocent people haven't been through what I've been through this week. If you want to question me further, it'll be through my attorney. The agents exchanged glances. They'd expected this, which meant they were preparing something bigger. Turner closed his notebook with deliberate slowness. We'll be in touch, Mr. Craig. Or should we say Operator 17? The name hung in the air like a bomb. Thomas's expression didn't change, but his mind raced. They knew. Somehow, they'd access files they shouldn't have been able to access. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Ray stood, buttoning his jacket. Here's the situation. We don't care about Ramiro Sargent. He's a small-time hood who got what he deserved. What we care about is a former classified operator using illegal methods to conduct vigilante justice. That's a national security issue. I defended my business and my family within the bounds of the law. Did you? Turner pulled out a tablet, showing Thomas a photograph. It was from inside Apex, showing Thomas in Ramiro's office. That's breaking and entering. Federal crime. And these, he swiped through more photos, show you surveilling known criminals, meeting with distributors, accessing classified databases. We can make 10 charges stick before breakfast. Ray put a hand on his partner's arm. What my colleague is trying to say is that we have a problem. You did our job for us, took down a criminal organization, but you used methods we can't officially condone. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us a full deposition about Ramiro Sargent's operations. Everything you learned, every contact, every piece of evidence. In exchange, we'll overlook how you obtained that information. And if I refuse, then we charge you with a dozen federal crimes, and you spend the next decade fighting in court. Your family gets dragged into it. Every aspect of your life gets exposed, including those 15 years you spent being someone else. Thomas felt the trap closing. They had him. Not completely. They couldn't prove everything, but enough to make his life hell. And more importantly, enough to threaten Miriam and Hope with the spotlight. I want immunity. Full immunity for anything I did in the course of defending myself from Ramiro Sargent. Not how it works, Turner said, but Ray was more thoughtful. Qualified immunity. We don't charge you for anything related to the Sargent case, but you provide full cooperation. And if we find you lied or withheld evidence, all bets are off. Thomas considered. It wasn't a great deal, but it was survivable. And more importantly, it was a deal that kept his family out of the spotlight. I'll need that in writing. You'll have it by tomorrow. Ray headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Sargent deserved what he got. The city's better off without him. But vigilantism sets a dangerous precedent. We can't have operators going rogue, no matter how justified. After they left, Thomas sat in the silent restaurant, feeling the weight of his choices. He'd won the battle with Ramiro, but potentially lost the war. The FBI would be watching him now. Any misstep, any hint of his old life surfacing, and they'd come down hard. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made powerful enemies, but also one friend. Watch the news tonight. DS. Daniel Sargent. Thomas wondered what the new crime boss was planning. That evening, the news ran a breaking story. The two FBI agents who'd visited Thomas were being investigated for corruption, allegedly accessing classified files without proper authorization, intimidating witnesses, and falsifying evidence. The investigation had been triggered by an anonymous tip with supporting documentation. Thomas watched in shock. Daniel had just eliminated his FBI problem, probably using the same corrupt networks Ramiro had built. It was a reminder that while Ramiro was gone, the system that had enabled him remained. Tuesday, different FBI agents arrived. Senior staff from the main office, professional and by the book. They took Thomas's statement, verified his cooperation, and left without threats. The immunity deal stood. But Thomas knew his past was no longer safely buried. People knew about Operator 17 now. That knowledge was a weapon, and in the wrong hands, it could destroy everything he'd built. Chapter 8, the final piece. The next week passed in an uneasy calm. Thomas reopened the Haven to surprising support. The neighborhood had rallied around him, seeing him as someone who'd stood up to criminals. Business was actually better than before, with people coming in just to meet the guy who took down Ramiro Sargent. Miriam and Hope returned Thursday, exhausted but relieved. Hope hugged him for 5 minutes straight, crying into his shoulder. That night, they had dinner as a family, just the three of them in the closed restaurant, eating Thomas's mushroom risotto and pretending everything was normal. But Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. Ramiro was in jail awaiting trial. Daniel Sargent was keeping his distance. The FBI had closed their investigation, yet his instincts, honed by 15 years of operations, kept screaming that he'd missed something. Friday night, he found out what. Thomas was locking up around midnight when a car pulled up, not a gangster's vehicle this time, but an expensive import, sleek and silver. A woman emerged, tall and elegant in a business suit that probably cost what Thomas made in a month. She was around 50, with iron gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to power. Thomas Craig. Her voice was culture-controlled. Restaurant closed. I'm not here for food. She pulled out identification. Josefina Roberson, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. I'm prosecuting Ramiro Sargent. Thomas's wariness increased. The FBI already took my statement. I'm not here about your statement. I'm here about a problem. She glanced around the empty street. May we speak inside? Privately, against his better judgment, Thomas unlocked the door and led her to a table. She sat with perfect posture, her briefcase placed precisely beside her chair. Ramiro Sargent is claiming coercion, she said without preamble. He says you blackmailed him into coming after you, that you threatened his family first, and that everything he did was self-defense. It's nonsense, but his lawyers are good, and they're making it complicated. I have evidence. The recordings, the live stream, which show him making threats, yes, but they don't show the weeks before. They don't explain how a restaurant owner managed to dismantle his entire organization. His lawyers are arguing you're not a victim, you're a provocateur, a trained killer who deliberately started a war. Thomas felt cold. They're going after my credibility. Exactly. And here's where it gets worse. Ramiro's lawyers have subpoenaed your military records. They're going to expose Operator 17, drag your past into court, paint you as a dangerous vigilante who manipulated a situation to justify violence. That's insane. He threatened my daughter. I know. I believe you. But the jury needs to believe you. And Ramiro's team is very good at creating reasonable doubt. Josefina leaned forward. I need your help. I need you to testify fully and completely about everything Ramiro did. But more than that, I need you to be prepared for them to tear apart your past. They'll make you look like a monster. I was just protecting my family. I know, but the truth is complicated. She pulled documents from her briefcase. These are your sealed military records. The judge granted me access for the prosecution. Thomas, some of the things you did, in context for national security, they make sense. Out of context, in front of a jury, they'll use it to destroy you. Thomas flipped through the files, seeing mission reports he'd almost forgotten. Tehran, 2008. Eliminated nuclear scientists supplying materials to terrorists. Minsk, 2011. Took out FSB officer running an assassin network. Karachi, 2014. Neutralized bomb maker responsible for 3 embassy attacks. 43 kills across 40 countries. Each one justified by people with more authority than Thomas had ever possessed. What are you asking me to do? Testify. Face their attacks. Help me put Ramiro away for the rest of his life. But understand that your past will become public. Your family will know everything, not just the version you told them. The world will know who you were. Thomas thought about Hope's face when she'd learned just the basics. About Miriam's careful questions about whether the people he'd killed deserved it. About the life he'd built as Thomas Craig, restaurant owner, family man, someone who'd left violence behind. If I don't testify, then Ramiro's lawyers will argue he was provoked, that you're a dangerous individual who manipulated events. They might create enough doubt to avoid a conviction, or at least reduce his sentence significantly. And they'll still subpoena your records as part of their defense, so your past comes out anyway. But without your testimony explaining the context, controlling the narrative, you'll just be a killer on paper with no chance to defend yourself. It was a masterful trap. Testify and face public exposure, or stay silent and be exposed anyway, while Ramiro potentially walked free. I need time to think. You have until Monday. The trial starts Tuesday. Josefina stood, gathering her briefcase. I'm sorry, Mr. Craig. You did the right thing stopping Ramiro, but sometimes doing the right thing has consequences. You of all people should understand that. After she left, Thomas sat alone in his restaurant, surrounded by the life he'd built. The photographs on the walls of happy customers. The menu he designed. The bar where regulars sat and shared their days. All of it about to be tainted by truths he tried to bury. He went upstairs to find Miriam reading in bed. She looked up, saw his face, and set down her book. What happened? Thomas told her everything. About the trial, the lawyers, the choice he had to make. When he finished, Miriam was quiet for a long moment. "You're going to testify," she finally said. "It means everything comes out. The missions, the kills, all of it. Hope will hear details I never wanted her to know. Your coworkers will learn you're married to someone who's killed 43 people. Our friends will have to deal with it." Miriam's voice was firm. "Thomas, you didn't choose this. Ramiro forced your hand. But you protected us, protected this neighborhood, stopped a criminal. If the price is the truth coming out, then that's a price we pay together. What if Hope can't handle it? Then we'll help her through it. She's stronger than you think. She's your daughter, after all." The next morning, Thomas called Josefina Roberson. "I'll testify. Full cooperation. But I need your help with something." "Name it." "Protection for my family during the trial. Ramiro still has friends. People who might try to intimidate us, or worse. Already arranged. U.S. Marshals will provide security. Your family will be safe." Thomas hung up and gathered his family. Time to tell them everything. Not the sanitized version, but the complete truth. Hope cried. Miriam held his hand. But in the end, they stood with him. "We're Craig's," Hope said, her jaw set with determination. "We don't run from the truth." Chapter 9. Justice. The trial of United States versus Ramiro Sargent began on a cold Tuesday morning in November. The federal courthouse was surrounded by media. This was the biggest organized crime case in years, made more sensational by the revelation that the key witness was a former classified operator. Thomas sat in the witness room with Josefina Roberson, reviewing his testimony one last time. Miriam and Hope were in the gallery, flanked by U.S. Marshals who'd become familiar faces over the past week. Daniel Sargent had sent a message through back channels. Anyone who went after Thomas's family would answer to him personally. The new crime boss might be a criminal, but apparently he believed in honoring deals. "They're going to try to break you," Josefina warned. "Make you angry, defensive, make you look unstable. Don't take the bait. Answer honestly, stay calm. And remember, the jury isn't judging you for what you did in service to your country. They're judging whether Ramiro Sargent is guilty." Thomas nodded. He'd faced worse than cross-examination. At least nobody would be shooting at him. The courtroom was wood-paneled and solemn. The judge, a stern woman named Eileen Hewitt with a reputation for running a tight ship. Ramiro sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking nothing like the violent criminal he was. His lawyers, a team of 3 led by a silver-haired man named Gilbert Forbes, exuded confidence. Thomas took the stand after swearing to tell the truth. For 2 hours, Josefina walked him through his story. Buying the Haven, building a life, the first threats from Ramiro's men, the escalating violence, the confrontation where Ramiro had threatened his daughter, his decision to fight back. "And why didn't you go to the police?" Josefina asked. "Because the police couldn't protect my family. Ramiro Sargent had evaded law enforcement for years. He had connections, resources, the ability to strike when no one was looking. I knew if I wanted my daughter to be safe, I had to stop him myself, even though that meant revisiting skills from your past." Yes. Josefina introduced Thomas's military records, heavily redacted but showing the outline of his service. Classified operations, special activities, 43 confirmed eliminations of high-value targets. "Mr. Craig, in your 15 years as Operator 17, did you ever kill anyone who wasn't explicitly authorized by the United States government?" "No. Every mission was approved, every target verified. I was a tool of national security, not a vigilante." "And in your conflict with Mr. Sargent, did you kill anyone?" "No. I defended myself and my property, but I didn't kill anyone. I could have. I had the skills and opportunity, but I chose not to because I wanted justice, not revenge." The morning session ended with Thomas having laid out his case clearly. But the afternoon brought Gilbert Forbes, and he came out swinging. "Mr. Craig, or should I call you Operator 17? Forbes' smile was sharp. You killed 43 people. Isn't that correct? I eliminated 43 threats to national security under lawful orders. Eliminated? What a nice euphemism. You shot them, stabbed them, poisoned them. You ended 43 human lives. Yes. And you expect this jury to believe that someone with your training and experience was threatened by my client? A local businessman, a crime boss who extorted innocent people and murdered anyone who opposed him. Objection, Forbes said calmly. Non-responsive. Sustained. Judge Hewitt ruled. Mr. Craig, please answer only the question asked. Forbes paced like a predator. You have the skills to kill a man in dozens of ways. My client had what? A couple of bodyguards? You weren't afraid of him. You set him up. You deliberately provoked him into attacking you, so you could justify destroying his business and reputation. That's not true. No. Let's look at the timeline. My client makes a business proposal. An extortion demand. A business proposal, Forbes repeated firmly, and you refuse. The next day, his financial records are mysteriously hacked and sent to the authorities. The day after that, his dealers suddenly refuse to pay him. The day after that, his construction business collapses. This isn't self-defense, Mr. Craig. This is a systematic military operation to destroy a man's life. He threatened to burn down my restaurant. He threatened my daughter. So you claim, but we only have your word for that. What we have proof of is you using illegal methods to hack private records, interfere with lawful businesses, and manipulate law enforcement into doing your dirty work. The cross-examination continued for hours. Forbes was good, pulling at every thread, making Thomas's actions seem calculated and excessive. But Thomas stayed calm, answering each question with the same steady demeanor he'd used in operations briefings. Finally, Forbes played his trump card. Mr. Craig, I'm going to read you a list of names. These are people you killed during your time as Operator 17. I want you to confirm each one. Josefina shot to her feet. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, this goes to the witness's character and propensity for violence. I'll allow it, Judge Hewitt said. But make it quick, Mr. Forbes. Forbes read the list. 43 names, some with ages. 22 years old, 35, 47, 59. Thomas confirmed each one, watching the jury's faces grow more troubled. These people had families, Mr. Craig. Children, parents, spouses. You took them away. They were terrorists, criminals, threats to innocent lives. Yes, they had families. So did their victims. And you're the one who decided they deserved to die. No, the United States government decided. I was just the instrument, just following orders. Where have we heard that before? Objection. Josefina was on her feet. Counsel is comparing the witness to Nazis. This is outrageous. Withdrawn, Forbes said smoothly. He'd made his point. No further questions. Thomas left the stand feeling drained. The jury looked at him with a mixture of respect, fear, and judgment. He'd told the truth, but whether they believe he was the victim remained to be seen. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecution built its case. The FBI testified about the evidence of Ramiro's crimes. Daniel Sargent took the stand, providing devastating testimony about murders, extortion, and violence. Business owners testified about threats and payments. The case against Ramiro was overwhelming, but Forbes kept returning to Thomas, painting him as a vigilante who'd manipulated events. In closing arguments, he claimed Ramiro Sargent was the real victim, a businessman trying to defend himself from a trained killer. Josefina's closing was powerful. She showed the jury the live-stream footage of Ramiro threatening to kill Thomas's family. She walked them through the evidence of years of criminal activity. She reminded them that Thomas Craig had every right to defend himself and his business. The defense wants you to believe that a man protecting his family from criminals is somehow the villain here, Josefina said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. But the truth is simple. Ramiro Sargent is a predator who finally met someone who wouldn't be prey. And now he's trying to use the legal system to escape the consequences of his choices. Don't let him. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Thomas spent that time at the Haven, trying to maintain normalcy while news helicopters circled overhead and reporters camped on his doorstep. Hope had missed a week of college classes. Miriam had taken leave from the hospital. Their lives had been torn apart by the trial. On Friday afternoon, the jury returned with a verdict. Guilty on all counts: racketeering, extortion, conspiracy to commit murder, illegal weapons possession. Ramiro's sergeant stood stoic as the verdict was read, but his facade cracked when the judge announced sentencing. 25 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for 15. Outside the courthouse, Thomas made a brief statement to the press. "I'm grateful for justice. I'm grateful for my family. And I'm grateful that I can finally return to being just a restaurant owner." The media asked 1,000 questions about Operator 17, about the kills, about whether he had regrets. Thomas ignored them all and walked away with Miriam and Hope flanking him. That night, the Haven was closed for a private dinner. Just Thomas, Miriam, Hope, Stewart, and a handful of close friends who'd stood by them through everything. Thomas made his specialty dishes, and for the first time in weeks, laughter filled the restaurant. "Dad," Hope said during dessert, "I've been thinking. I want to change my major." "To what?" "Criminal justice. After everything we've been through, I want to help people who can't protect themselves." She smiled. "Legally, of course. I don't have your particular skill set." Thomas felt pride swell in his chest. His daughter had seen the worst of his past and chosen to make something positive from it. Over the following months, life slowly returned to normal. The media attention faded. The restaurant continued to thrive. Daniel Sargent kept his word, running a quieter, more careful operation that didn't threaten legitimate businesses. The neighborhood gentrified around Oak Street, property values rising, young families moving in. Thomas Craig settled back into being a restaurant owner. He still woke, sometimes from dreams of other lives, other names, other missions. But Miriam was always there, and Hope called every Sunday from college, and Stewart had finally mastered the risotto recipe. One evening, a young couple came in for dinner. They just moved to the neighborhood, heard great things about the Haven. As Thomas served them his signature dish, the woman asked, "Are you the owner? The one from the trial?" "I am," Thomas admitted. That must have been terrifying, dealing with criminals. Thomas thought about Tehran and Minsk and Karachi, about 43 faces he'd never forget, about the fine line between justice and revenge. Then he looked around his restaurant, at the life he'd built and fought to protect. "It was," he said, "but I had something worth fighting for." The couple smiled and returned to their meal. Thomas returned to his kitchen, where Stewart was prepping for the evening rush. Outside, Oak Street bustled with normal life. People walking dogs, teenagers laughing, the ordinary chaos of a neighborhood at peace. Thomas Craig, former Operator 17, picked up his knife and got back to work. The past was finally buried. The future was being written with every plate he sent out, every smile from his customers, every day his family was safe. He'd been a ghost for 15 years, a shadow moving through other people's nightmares. Now he was just a man who made good food and loved his family. And that, Thomas thought as he started on a new risotto, was exactly who he wanted to be. The Haven was open for business, and Thomas Craig was finally home.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.